Welcome to Listen and Learn English, the place where you improve your English naturally through real conversations, stories, and useful expressions. If you're serious about learning English, you're in the right place. My name is Catherine, and today we're diving into a topic that can change your career: how to speak confidently in job interviews. Interviews can feel nerve-wracking, but the right words, phrases, and expressions can make a huge difference. And here's the thing: learning by listening and repeating is one of the fastest ways to sound natural in English. That's why in this episode, we'll go through real interview phrases, idioms, and expressions, and you'll repeat them with me, because repetition is key to fluency. So grab your headphones, find a quiet place, and get ready to speak with me, because today we're going to make sure you never feel lost in an interview again. Now, let's talk about something important. The moment you step into an interview, before you even say a word, the interviewer is already forming an opinion about you. First impressions matter: your posture, your tone, and most importantly, your first few words set the tone for the entire conversation. Let's go over some natural and confident ways to greet an interviewer. First example is, "Good morning, it's a pleasure to meet you." Another alternative is, "Good afternoon, thank you for having me today." And another way to say it is, "I really appreciate this opportunity. I'm looking forward to our conversation." Come on, say this last one with me. "I really appreciate this opportunity. I'm looking forward to our conversation." Again, "I really appreciate this opportunity. I'm looking forward to our conversation." Did you repeat it? If not, go back and say it with me. Confidence comes with practice. Now, after the greeting, the interviewer will usually say something like, "Tell me a little bit about yourself." And this is where many people freeze, because even though it sounds simple, it's actually a tricky question. You don't want to just repeat your resume, but you also don't want to ramble on and on without a clear direction. The best way to answer this question is with a short, structured response that gives a little bit of your background, your skills, and why you're interested in the job. Let's go over some ways to introduce yourself naturally and confidently. First example is, "I have a background in marketing with 5 years of experience in digital campaigns and content strategy. I'm passionate about helping brands connect with their audience in meaningful ways." Another alternative is, "I started my career in customer service, and over the years, I've developed strong problem-solving skills and a deep understanding of customer needs." And another way to say it is, "I'm a software developer with a strong foundation in web development and a passion for creating user-friendly applications." Come on, repeat this last one with me. "I'm a software developer with a strong foundation in web development and a passion for creating user-friendly applications." Again, "I'm a software developer with a strong foundation in web development and a passion for creating user-friendly applications." Now, let's go deeper. If you really want to stand out, you need to sound confident and natural. That means using phrases that show enthusiasm and professionalism. One great expression is, "I thrive in fast-paced environments." This means you work well under pressure and enjoy challenges. Come on, repeat with me. "I thrive in fast-paced environments." Again, "I thrive in fast-paced environments." Let's put it in a sentence. First example is, "I thrive in fast-paced environments, which is why I was able to handle multiple projects at once in my previous job." Another alternative is, "I've always enjoyed solving problems on the spot, and I thrive in fast-paced environments where quick thinking is needed." Say this last one with me. "I've always enjoyed solving problems on the spot, and I thrive in fast-paced environments where quick thinking is needed." Did you say it? If not, rewind and do it again, because the more you repeat, the more natural it becomes. All right, we've covered greetings and introductions, but there's a lot more to talk about. Let's keep going. Now that we've covered introductions, let's talk about one of the most common interview questions. What are your strengths? This question is a great opportunity to highlight what makes you a strong candidate, but the key is to be specific. Instead of saying, I'm a hard worker or I'm a team player, you want to use professional and engaging phrases that really show your value. One great phrase you can use is, I have a knack for. This means you're naturally good at something. Come on, repeat with me. I have a knack for. Again, I have a knack for. Now, let's put it into a sentence. First example is I have a knack for finding creative solutions to complex problems, which is why I excel in project management. Another alternative is I have a knack for making customers feel heard and valued, which has helped me build strong client relationships. Say this last one with me. I have a knack for making customers feel heard and valued, which has helped me build strong client relationships. Did you repeat it? If not, go back and say it with me. Repetition is key. Now, another powerful phrase you can use when talking about your strengths is, I take pride in. This means you care deeply about doing something well. Come on, repeat with me. I take pride in. Again, I take pride in. Let's use it in a sentence. First example is, I take pride in delivering high-quality work and meeting deadlines consistently. Another alternative is, I take pride in mentoring new employees and helping them grow in their roles. Say this last one with me. I take pride in mentoring new employees and helping them grow in their roles. Again, I take pride in mentoring new employees and helping them grow in their roles. All right, let's move on to another important question. What is your biggest weakness? A lot of people struggle with this one because they don't want to say something negative, but they also don't want to sound like they're avoiding the question. The best way to answer is to mention a weakness, but also explain how you're working to improve it. One phrase that works really well in this situation is, I used to struggle with, but I've been working on it. Come on, repeat with me. I used to struggle with, but I've been working on it. Again, I used to struggle with, but I've been working on it. Now, let's put it in a sentence. First example is, I used to struggle with public speaking, but I've been working on it by taking presentation courses and practicing regularly. Another alternative is, I used to struggle with time management, but I've been working on it by using productivity tools and setting clear priorities. Say this last one with me. I used to struggle with time management, but I've been working on it by using productivity tools and setting clear priorities. Again, I used to struggle with time management, but I've been working on it by using productivity tools and setting clear priorities. Did you say it? If not, rewind and do it again. All right, we've talked about strengths and weaknesses, but interviews are also about showing that you're a great fit for the company. Let's keep going. Now that we've covered strengths and weaknesses, let's shift our focus to another crucial part of any interview: how to answer behavioral questions. These are the questions that start with phrases like, tell me about a time when, or give me an example of. These questions are designed to see how you've handled situations in the past and whether you have the skills and mindset for the job. One of the best ways to structure your answers is by using the STAR method: situation, task, action, and result. You describe the situation, explain what task you were responsible for, talk about the action you took, and finally, share the result. Now, let's practice answering one of these behavioral questions together. Imagine you're asked, tell me about a time when you had to deal with a difficult coworker. You could start with, I once worked on a project where a colleague and I had very different approaches. That sets the situation. Now you move to the task. My responsibility was to ensure we met our deadline despite our disagreements. Then the action. I initiated a conversation to understand their perspective and find a compromise. And finally, the result. In the end, we found a middle ground and successfully delivered the project on time. That answer follows the STAR method. Now say this last part with me. I initiated a conversation to understand their perspective and find a compromise. Again, I initiated a conversation to understand their perspective and find a compromise. This brings us to another useful phrase. Find common ground. This means to reach an agreement or understanding with someone, especially when you have different opinions. Come on, repeat with me. Find common ground. Again, find common ground. Let's put it in a sentence. First example is, when working with different teams, I always try to find common ground to keep projects running smoothly. Another alternative is, in negotiations, my goal is to find common ground so that both sides feel satisfied. Now say this one with me. In negotiations, my goal is to find common ground so that both sides feel satisfied. Again, in negotiations, my goal is to find common ground so that both sides feel satisfied. You see how useful this phrase is? You can use it in work situations, personal relationships, and of course, in interviews. Now, let's move on to another important interview skill, asking great questions at the end. A lot of people don't realize this, but the questions you ask at the end of an interview are just as important as the answers you give. When the interviewer asks, "Do you have any questions for us?" you should always have something prepared. One of the best questions you can ask is, "What does success look like in this role?" This shows that you're already thinking about how to excel in the job. Another great question is, "Can you tell me more about the team I'll be working with?" This helps you get a sense of the work environment and also shows that you care about collaboration. Now, let's practice saying these. First example is, "What does success look like in this role?" Another alternative is, "Can you tell me more about the team I'll be working with?" Come on, say them with me. What does success look like in this role? Again, what does success look like in this role? And now, can you tell me more about the team I'll be working with? Again, can you tell me more about the team I'll be working with? All right, we've covered a lot, but there's still so much more to explore. Let's keep going and go even deeper into the details of acing an interview. One thing that can really set you apart in an interview is how you talk about your achievements. A lot of people hesitate when it comes to talking about their successes because they don't want to sound arrogant. But here's the thing. An interview is your chance to show why you're the right person for the job. If you don't talk about your accomplishments, who will? The key is to do it with confidence, but also with humility. Instead of just saying, "I'm great at problem solving," you should back it up with a real example. Something like, in my previous role, we faced a major issue with late product deliveries, so I created a new tracking system that reduced delays by 30%. This way, you're showing your skill rather than just stating it. And this brings us to a very useful phrase, walk someone through something. This means to explain something step by step. Come on, repeat with me. Walk someone through something. Again, walk someone through something. Let's use it in a sentence. First example is, in the interview, I walked the hiring manager through my biggest project and how I handled challenges. Another alternative is, when training new employees, I always walk them through the company's software to help them get comfortable. Now say this with me. In the interview, I walked the hiring manager through my biggest project and how I handled challenges. Again, in the interview, I walked the hiring manager through my biggest project and how I handled challenges. See how this phrase makes your explanation sound clearer and more structured? Instead of just listing facts, you take the listener on a journey. Now let's talk about a really important interview skill: handling unexpected questions. Sometimes, no matter how well you prepare, the interviewer might throw a question at you that you didn't expect. Maybe it's something tricky like, if you could have dinner with any historical figure, who would it be? Or something directly challenging like, why should we hire you over someone with more experience? When this happens, it's important to stay calm and take a moment to think before answering. It's completely fine to say, "That's an interesting question. Let me take a moment to think about it." This gives you time to gather your thoughts instead of blurting out the first thing that comes to mind. And this brings us to another great phrase: buy time. This means to delay an immediate response so you have more time to think or act. Come on, say it with me: buy time. Again, buy time. Let's use it in a sentence. First example is, when I get a tough question in an interview, I buy time by saying, "That's a great question. Let me think about it for a moment." Another alternative is, in negotiations, I sometimes buy time by asking for more details before giving my answer. Now repeat after me. In negotiations, I sometimes buy time by asking for more details before giving my answer. Again, in negotiations, I sometimes buy time by asking for more details before giving my answer. This is such a useful phrase, not just for interviews, but in everyday conversations. Anytime you need an extra second to think, you can use it. All right, now let's go even deeper into handling tricky questions and making sure you leave a strong impression in your interview. There's still so much to cover, so let's keep going. Now, one thing that many people struggle with in interviews is talking about their weaknesses. This is one of the most dreaded questions. What is your biggest weakness? And let's be honest, it's tricky. You don't want to say something that makes you look completely unfit for the job, but you also don't want to sound like you're bragging by saying something like, "I'm just too much of a perfectionist." The key to answering this well is to be honest, but also show that you're working on it. A great structure for your answer is to mention a real weakness, explain how it has affected you, and then talk about what you're doing to improve it. For example, you might say, "In the past, I struggled with public speaking. I used to feel nervous when presenting to large groups. However, I recognize this as an important skill, so I started practicing by speaking in team meetings and taking an online course on presentation skills. Now, I feel much more confident." See how that works? You're acknowledging a weakness, but you're also showing growth. That's what employers want to hear. And that brings us to a very useful phrase: turn something around. This means to take a bad situation and make it better. Come on, say it with me. Turn something around. Again, turn something around. Let's use it in a sentence. First example is, I used to struggle with time management, but I turned it around by using a daily planner and setting reminders. Another alternative is, our sales numbers were low at the beginning of the year, but we turned things around by launching a new marketing campaign. Now repeat after me. Our sales numbers were low at the beginning of the year, but we turned things around by launching a new marketing campaign. Again, our sales numbers were low at the beginning of the year, but we turned things around by launching a new marketing campaign. This phrase is so powerful because it shows transformation. It's a great way to talk about challenges in a positive way. Now let's move on to another common interview challenge: answering questions about teamwork. Many employers want to know how well you work with others, so they might ask, "Tell me about a time you worked on a team," or "How do you handle conflicts with colleagues?" When answering these, it's important to highlight your ability to collaborate, communicate, and resolve issues professionally. A great way to structure your answer is by using a simple method called STAR: situation, task, action, result. You briefly explain the situation, what your role was, what actions you took, and what the result was. For example, you could say, "In my last job, our team had a tight deadline for a project. There was a disagreement about the best approach, so I stepped in to facilitate a discussion, making sure everyone's ideas were heard. In the end, we combined different suggestions and delivered the project on time, impressing the client." And here's a great phrase to use in this kind of answer: find common ground. This means to discover shared interests or agreement between people. Come on, say it with me: find common ground. Again, find common ground. Let's use it in a sentence. First example is, during a team disagreement, I helped us find common ground by focusing on our shared goal. Another alternative is, when negotiating with a client, I always try to find common ground so we can reach a deal that works for both of us. Now, repeat after me. When negotiating with a client, I always try to find common ground so we can reach a deal that works for both of us. Again, when negotiating with a client, I always try to find common ground so we can reach a deal that works for both of us. This phrase is useful not just for interviews, but for real life. Whether it's dealing with coworkers, friends, or even family members. All right, let's keep going. There's still so much more to cover about nailing an interview and making the best impression possible. Now, let's talk about another tricky interview question. Why do you want to work here? This question is testing whether you've done your research on the company and whether you're genuinely interested in the role. A lot of people make the mistake of giving a very general answer like, "I'm looking for a good opportunity," or "I need a job." But that doesn't impress employers. They want to see that you've thought about how you can contribute to the company and why this role is a great fit for you. A strong way to answer this is by connecting your skills and values with the company's mission. Here's an example. I admire this company's commitment to innovation and customer satisfaction. With my background in project management and my passion for problem solving, I believe I can contribute by streamlining workflows and enhancing efficiency. Notice how this answer isn't just about what you want, but also about what you can offer. It shows enthusiasm and an understanding of the company's goals. And here's a useful expression to use: hit the ground running. This means to start something with a lot of energy and efficiency right away. Come on, say it with me. Hit the ground running. Again, hit the ground running. Let's use it in a sentence. First example is, if hired, I will hit the ground running by immediately identifying areas for improvement. Another alternative is, our new manager hit the ground running by implementing new strategies in the first week. Now, repeat after me. Our new manager hit the ground running by implementing new strategies in the first week. Again, our new manager hit the ground running by implementing new strategies in the first week. This phrase is excellent for interviews because it shows that you're proactive and ready to contribute from day one. Now, let's move on to another important part of the interview: asking questions. Many people forget that an interview is a two-way street. It's not just about the employer evaluating you, it's also about you evaluating them. That's why when they ask, "Do you have any questions for us?" you should always have at least 2 or 3 thoughtful questions prepared. Avoid questions about salary or vacation days at this stage. Instead, ask questions that show you're serious about the role and interested in the company. Here are a few good ones. What does success look like in this position? How does the company support employee growth and development? Can you tell me about the team I'd be working with? These questions show that you're thinking about how you can succeed in the role and how you fit into the bigger picture. And here's another great phrase to use: go the extra mile. This means To make extra effort to do something exceptionally well. Come on, say it with me. Go the extra mile. Again, go the extra mile. Let's use it in a sentence. First example is, I always go the extra mile to ensure my work exceeds expectations. Another alternative is successful employees go the extra mile by taking initiative and solving problems before they arise. Now repeat after me. Successful employees go the extra mile by taking initiative and solving problems before they arise. Again, successful employees go the extra mile by taking initiative and solving problems before they arise. This phrase is fantastic in an interview because it shows that you're not just willing to do the job, you're willing to do it exceptionally well. All right, we've covered a lot, but there's still more to discuss when it comes to interview success. Let's keep going. Now, let's tackle one of the most dreaded questions. What is your greatest weakness? Many people panic when they hear this question because they don't want to say something that will make them look bad. But let me tell you a secret. Interviewers don't ask this question to trick you. They ask it to see if you're self-aware and if you take steps to improve yourself. The worst answers you can give are, I don't have any weaknesses, or I work too hard. These don't sound genuine. A much better approach is to mention a real weakness, but also show how you're actively working on it. Here's an example. In the past, I struggled with public speaking, but I've been taking courses and practicing regularly, and I've seen significant improvement. See how this answer works? It's honest, but it also shows a growth mindset. You're admitting a challenge, but you're proving that you're proactive about improving. And here's an advanced phrase you can use: room for improvement. This means there's potential to grow or develop in a certain area. Come on, say it with me. Room for improvement. Again, room for improvement. Let's use it in a sentence. First example is, my public speaking skills have room for improvement, but I'm taking steps to get better. Another alternative is, every employee has room for improvement and feedback helps us grow. Now, repeat after me. Every employee has room for improvement and feedback helps us grow. Again, every employee has room for improvement and feedback helps us grow. This phrase is perfect for an interview because it shows that you recognize growth opportunities without being too negative about yourself. Now, let's talk about body language. Did you know that over half of communication is nonverbal? Your words matter, but your posture, eye contact, and gestures matter just as much. If you slouch, avoid eye contact, or fidget too much, it might make you look nervous or uninterested. So what should you do instead? Sit up straight, make natural eye contact, and use hand gestures in a controlled way. One of the best things you can do is practice in front of a mirror or record yourself answering common questions. It might feel strange at first, but trust me, it makes a huge difference. And here's a great phrase to describe this. Make a strong impression. This means to create a lasting and positive effect on someone. Come on, say it with me. Make a strong impression. Again, make a strong impression. Let's use it in a sentence. First example is, I want to make a strong impression in my job interview by being confident and prepared. Another alternative is, her professionalism and enthusiasm helped her make a strong impression on the hiring manager. Now, repeat after me. Her professionalism and enthusiasm helped her make a strong impression on the hiring manager. Again, her professionalism and enthusiasm helped her make a strong impression on the hiring manager. This phrase is exactly what you want to achieve in an interview. You want to stand out and leave a positive impact. Now, let's move on to another crucial part of interviews: following up. A lot of people think that once the interview is over, their work is done. But actually, sending a follow-up email can set you apart from other candidates. A follow-up email should be short but thoughtful. Thank the interviewer for their time, mention something specific from the conversation, and express your continued interest in the role. Here's an example. Dear, interviewer's name, thank you for taking the time to speak with me today. I really enjoyed our conversation about specific topic, and I'm excited about the opportunity to contribute to your team. I appreciate the insights you shared, and I look forward to hearing from you soon. This simple step shows professionalism, gratitude, and enthusiasm. And here's a great phrase to use. Leave a lasting impression. This means to be remembered positively. Come on, say it with me. Leave a lasting impression. Again, leave a lasting impression. Let's use it in a sentence. First example is, sending a thank you email can help you leave a lasting impression after an interview. Another alternative is, her kindness and professionalism left a lasting impression on everyone she met. Now, repeat after me. Her kindness and professionalism left a lasting impression on everyone she met. Again, her kindness and professionalism left a lasting impression on everyone she met. This is exactly what you want to do in an interview. You want to be the candidate they remember. All right, we're covering a lot, but there's still more to dive into. Let's keep going. Let's keep going because there's still so much to unpack when it comes to mastering interviews. Every little detail, from how you answer questions to how you carry yourself, plays a role in leaving the right impression. Now, let's talk about the classic question. Why do you want to work here? This is one of the most common questions, yet so many candidates struggle with it. They either give a very generic answer like, I need a job, or they just repeat what's already on the company's website without adding anything personal. But here's the thing. Interviewers ask this question because they want to see if you've done your research and if your values align with the company's mission. So how do you answer this effectively? First, mention something specific about the company that excites you. It could be their work culture, a project they're working on, or their values. Then connect it to your skills and experience. Here's an example. I admire your company's commitment to innovation and continuous learning. The way you encourage employees to grow aligns perfectly with my own approach to professional development. I've always believed that staying curious and adapting to new challenges is the key to success, and I'd love to contribute my problem-solving skills to your team. See how that works? It's not just about saying, I want to work here. It's about showing enthusiasm and making a personal connection. And here's a useful phrase for this, align with my values. This means that something matches or fits well with your personal beliefs or principles. Come on, say it with me. Align with my values. Again, align with my values. Let's use it in a sentence. First example is, I'm looking for a company that aligns with my values of teamwork and innovation. Another alternative is, before accepting a job offer, I always consider whether the company aligns with my values and career goals. Now, repeat after me. Before accepting a job offer, I always consider whether the company aligns with my values and career goals. Again, before accepting a job offer, I always consider whether the company aligns with my values and career goals. This phrase is incredibly useful in professional conversations because it helps you express why you're drawn to certain opportunities. Now, let's shift to another major part of interviews, negotiating salary. So many people feel awkward discussing money, but this is an important step in getting what you deserve. When an employer asks, "What are your salary expectations?" You don't want to undersell yourself, but you also don't want to ask for something completely unrealistic. The best approach is to do research beforehand. Check salary ranges for your position in your industry and location, and come prepared with a confident response. Instead of giving a single number, it's better to give a range. For example, based on my research and experience, I'm looking for a salary in the range of X to Y. However, I'm open to discussing the full compensation package. This answer shows that you've done your homework, you value your skills, but you're also open to negotiation. And here's a useful phrase to remember: know your worth. This means to understand your value and not settle for less than you deserve. Come on, say it with me. Know your worth. Again, know your worth. Let's use it in a sentence. First example is, before negotiating my salary, I made sure to research industry standards so I could confidently know my worth. Another alternative is, she didn't accept the first job offer because she knew her worth and wanted fair compensation. Now, repeat after me. She didn't accept the first job offer because she knew her worth and wanted fair compensation. Again, she didn't accept the first job offer because she knew her worth and wanted fair compensation. This is so important, especially if you're just starting out in your career. It's easy to accept the first offer you get, but knowing your worth and negotiating professionally can make a big difference. Now, let's move on to another key aspect of interviews: asking the interviewer questions. A lot of people think that once they've answered all the questions, the interview is over. But actually, when the interviewer says, "Do you have any questions for me?" it's your chance to stand out. Asking thoughtful questions shows that you're genuinely interested in the role and that you've been paying attention. Here are some great questions you can ask. Can you tell me more about the team I'll be working with? What does success look like in this role? What are some challenges I might face in the first few months? How do you see this position evolving over the next few years? These questions show that you're thinking ahead and that you care about how you can contribute to the company. And here's an advanced phrase you can use: think long term. This means to plan or consider things that will happen in the future rather than just focusing on the present. Come on, say it with me. Think long term. Again, think long term. Let's use it in a sentence. First example is, when choosing a job, I always think long term about career growth and opportunities. Another alternative is, successful companies think long term when planning their business strategies. Now, repeat after me. Successful companies think long term when planning their business strategies. Again, successful companies think long term when planning their business strategies. This is such an important mindset to have, both in interviews and in life. You don't want to just focus on the short-term benefits of a job. You want to think about where it can take you in the future. We've covered so much, but there's still more to explore. Let's keep going. Now, let's talk about handling difficult questions. Sometimes interviewers ask tricky or unexpected questions to see how you think on your feet. One common tough question is, what is your biggest weakness? This question can feel like a trap because you don't want to make yourself look bad, but you also don't want to lie or pretend you're perfect. The best approach here is to mention a real weakness, but also show how you're actively working to improve it. That way you turn a negative into a positive. For example, one way to answer this is, in the past, I struggled with time management because I used to take on too many tasks at once. However, I've been working on prioritizing my workload and using productivity tools to stay on top of deadlines. See how that works? You admit something real, but you also show growth and self-awareness. And here's an important phrase to remember: turn a negative into a positive. This means to take a bad situation or weakness and find a way to make it beneficial. Come on, say it with me. Turn a negative into a positive. Again, turn a negative into a positive. Let's use it in a sentence. First example is, during my interview, I turned a negative into a positive by explaining how I learned from past challenges. Another alternative is, great leaders know how to turn a negative into a positive and motivate their teams, even in tough situations. Now, repeat after me. Great leaders know how to turn a negative into a positive and motivate their teams even in tough situations. Again, great leaders know how to turn a negative into a positive and motivate their teams even in tough situations. This phrase is so powerful because it's not just about interviews, it's a mindset that can help you in all areas of life. Another difficult question interviewers ask is, why should we hire you? This question puts you on the spot, and a lot of candidates freeze up or give a very generic answer. But this is actually your opportunity to sell yourself and highlight your strengths. A great way to answer is to focus on three things: your skills, your experience, and what makes you unique. Here's an example. You should hire me because I have a strong background in project management, and I've successfully led multiple teams to complete high-pressure projects on time. My ability to stay organized and adapt to new challenges makes me confident that I can contribute to your company's success. Notice how this answer is specific. It doesn't just say, I'm hardworking and passionate. It gives concrete reasons and examples. And here's a useful phrase for this: stand out from the crowd. This means to be different or more impressive than others in a positive way. Come on, say it with me. Stand out from the crowd. Again, stand out from the crowd. Let's use it in a sentence. First example is, I always prepare for interviews carefully because I want to stand out from the crowd. Another alternative is, to get noticed in a competitive job market, you have to find ways to stand out from the crowd. Now, repeat after me. To get noticed in a competitive job market, you have to find ways to stand out from the crowd. Again, to get noticed in a competitive job market, you have to find ways to stand out from the crowd. This is so important because companies receive hundreds of applications, and your goal is to make them remember you. Now, let's shift to another key part of interviews: handling unexpected situations. Sometimes interviews don't go as planned. Maybe the interviewer asks a question you didn't expect. Maybe you get nervous and forget what you were going to say. Or maybe the interview is going well, but then they bring up something you weren't prepared for, like a technical question or a challenge you haven't faced before. In these moments, the most important thing is to stay calm and take a deep breath. If you don't know the answer to something, don't panic. Instead, acknowledge the question and give yourself a moment to think. Here's a phrase you can use in these situations: that's a great question. Let me take a moment to think about it. This buys you a little time to gather your thoughts instead of feeling pressured to answer immediately. And here's another useful phrase: think on your feet. This means to react quickly and effectively without preparation. Come on, say it with me. Think on your feet. Again, think on your feet. Let's use it in a sentence. First example is, In job interviews, you often have to think on your feet and respond to unexpected questions. Another alternative is great speakers know how to think on their feet and adjust to any situation. Now, repeat after me. Great speakers know how to think on their feet and adjust to any situation. Again, great speakers know how to think on their feet and adjust to any situation. This skill is incredibly valuable, not just for interviews, but for any professional setting where you need to stay composed under pressure. We're covering so much, and I still have more to share. Let's keep going. All right, let's keep going because there are still so many crucial aspects of interviews we need to cover. Now, let's talk about one of the most overlooked but incredibly important parts of an interview: your body language. A lot of people focus so much on what they're going to say that they completely forget about how they present themselves physically. But trust me, body language can make or break an interview. Think about it. Imagine two candidates walk into an interview room. The first one sits up straight, makes eye contact, and smiles confidently. The second one slouches, avoids eye contact, and fidgets nervously. Even before they say a single word, who do you think makes a better first impression? Exactly, the first one. That's because confident body language shows that you are self-assured and professional. So, here's what you need to do. First, sit up straight and keep your shoulders relaxed. This makes you look confident and approachable. Second, make eye contact, but don't stare. Just maintain a natural and engaging level of eye contact with the interviewer. And third, use natural hand gestures when you speak. This makes you look more expressive and engaged. Now, there's a useful phrase for this: put your best foot forward. It means to present yourself in the best possible way, especially in an important situation like an interview. Come on, say it with me. Put your best foot forward. Again, put your best foot forward. Let's use it in a sentence. First example is, in an interview, it's important to put your best foot forward by being confident and well prepared. Another alternative is, when meeting new clients, always put your best foot forward to make a great impression. Now, repeat after me. When meeting new clients, always put your best foot forward to make a great impression. Again, when meeting new clients, always put your best foot forward to make a great impression. This phrase is so important because it reminds you that every interview is an opportunity to showcase your best self. Now, let's move on to another key part of an interview: how to close it on a strong note. Most people prepare for the beginning and middle of an interview, but they forget about the ending, and that's a big mistake. The way you end your interview can leave a lasting impression on the interviewer, so you need to make sure you finish strong. A great way to do this is to have a strong closing statement. This is where you summarize your strengths, express your enthusiasm for the role, and thank the interviewer for their time. Here's an example of a great closing statement. I've really enjoyed discussing this opportunity with you today. Based on everything we've talked about, I'm even more excited about the role and confident that my skills in project management and leadership would allow me to contribute effectively to your team. Thank you so much for your time, and I look forward to the next steps. See how that works? It's polite, professional, and reinforces your strengths one last time. And here's a useful phrase: leave a lasting impression. This means to do something memorable that people will remember positively. Come on, say it with me. Leave a lasting impression. Again, leave a lasting impression. Let's use it in a sentence. First example is, in a job interview, your closing statement should leave a lasting impression on the interviewer. Another alternative is, great public speakers know how to leave a lasting impression on their audience. Now, repeat after me. Great public speakers know how to leave a lasting impression on their audience. Again, great public speakers know how to leave a lasting impression on their audience. This is so important because the last thing you say in an interview often sticks with the interviewer the most. Now, let's talk about one final aspect of interviews: following up after the interview. A lot of candidates think that once the interview is over, their job is done. But that's not true. Sending a follow-up email is a small step that can make a big difference. A follow-up email is a short, polite message you send to the interviewer within a day or two after your interview to thank them for their time and express your continued interest in the role. Here's a simple but effective follow-up email you can send. Dear interviewer's name, I just wanted to take a moment to thank you for the opportunity to interview for the job title position at company name. I really enjoyed our conversation and learning more about the team and the exciting projects you're working on. I'm very enthusiastic about the role, and I truly believe that my skills in mention a key skill would be a great fit for your team. Please let me know if there's anything else I can provide as you move forward with your decision. Looking forward to hearing from you. Best regards, your name. See how simple but effective that is? It's polite, professional, and reinforces your enthusiasm for the role. And here's a great phrase for this: follow up. This means to check back on something or contact someone again after an initial meeting. Come on, say it with me. Follow up, again, follow up. Let's use it in a sentence. First example is, after a job interview, it's important to follow up with a thank you email. Another alternative is, I called the company to follow up on my application and see if there were any updates. Now repeat after me. I called the company to follow up on my application and see if there were any updates. Again, I called the company to follow up on my application and see if there were any updates. Following up shows professionalism and keeps you on the interviewer's radar. All right. We've covered so much ground today, but there's still more to explore. Let's keep going. All right, let's keep the momentum going because interviews have so many layers and every little detail can make a difference. Now, let's talk about one of the trickiest parts of an interview: handling tough or unexpected questions. No matter how much you prepare, there's always a chance you'll be asked something that catches you off guard. Maybe it's a behavioral question you didn't expect, or a technical question that's more complex than you anticipated. The key is to stay calm, take a moment to think, and respond in a structured way. One great technique for answering difficult questions is the STAR method. This stands for situation, task, action, and result. It's a structured way of answering behavioral questions where you describe a situation, explain the task at hand, outline the action you took, and share the result. For example, let's say an interviewer asks you, "Can you tell me about a time you dealt with a difficult coworker?" Instead of panicking, you can use the STAR method to structure your answer. First, you set the situation. In my previous job, I worked on a team project where one of my coworkers was very resistant to new ideas. Then, you describe the task. We needed to develop a marketing campaign, but we couldn't move forward because we kept disagreeing on the approach. Next, you explain the action you took. I took the initiative to set up a one-on-one meeting with my coworker. I listened to their concerns, shared my perspective, and suggested a compromise that incorporated both of our ideas. Finally, you highlight the result. As a result, we were able to develop a campaign that met both of our goals, and it ended up being one of the most successful projects that quarter. See how that works? It keeps your answer structured, clear, and results focused. And here's a useful phrase for this: think on your feet. This means to respond quickly and effectively in an unexpected situation. Come on, say it with me. Think on your feet. Again, think on your feet. Let's use it in a sentence. First example is, during a job interview, you might have to think on your feet if you get a tough question. Another alternative is, in sales, you often need to think on your feet to handle unexpected objections from customers. Now, repeat after me. In sales, you often need to think on your feet to handle unexpected objections from customers. Again, in sales, you often need to think on your feet to handle unexpected objections from customers. This is such an important skill because no matter how well you prepare, interviews will always have surprises. Now let's move on to another key aspect: negotiating your salary. A lot of people feel uncomfortable discussing salary, but it's an important part of the process. If you don't advocate for yourself, you might end up accepting an offer that doesn't reflect your worth. The first thing to remember is that salary negotiation is completely normal. Employers expect candidates to negotiate, so don't be afraid to have the conversation. The key is to be polite, professional, and well prepared. One of the best ways to approach salary discussions is to express enthusiasm for the role before talking about numbers. For example, you can say, "I'm really excited about this opportunity and the chance to contribute to your team. Based on my experience and research on industry standards, I believe a salary in the range of your desired range would be appropriate. Is there flexibility in the budget for this role?" This approach is confident but professional. You're showing excitement about the job while also making it clear that you know your worth. And here's a great phrase for this: know your worth. This means to understand your own value and not settle for less than you deserve. Come on, say it with me. Know your worth. Again, know your worth. Let's use it in a sentence. First example is, when negotiating your salary, it's important to know your worth and ask for what you deserve. Another alternative is, she turned down the job offer because she knew her worth and wanted better compensation. Now repeat after me. She turned down the job offer because she knew her worth and wanted better compensation. Again, she turned down the job offer because she knew her worth and wanted better compensation. All right, let's keep going because there's still so much to unpack when it comes to mastering interviews. One of the biggest challenges people face in interviews is nervousness. No matter how confident you are in your skills, it's completely normal to feel a little anxious before an important interview, but the key is to manage that nervous energy and turn it into confidence. One great way to do that is through preparation. When you're well prepared, you automatically feel more in control. That means researching the company, practicing common interview questions, and even rehearsing your answers out loud. Another effective technique is visualization. This means mentally picturing yourself succeeding in the interview. Imagine walking into the room with confidence answering questions smoothly, and leaving with a great impression. The more you visualize success, the more natural it will feel when the actual moment arrives. And of course, deep breathing is a simple but powerful tool. Taking slow, deep breaths before an interview helps calm your nerves and keeps your voice steady. Now, here's a great phrase for this: keep your cool. This means to stay calm and composed, especially in stressful situations. Say it with me: keep your cool. Again, keep your cool. Let's use it in a sentence. First example is: during an interview, it's important to keep your cool even if you get a difficult question. Another alternative is: she kept her cool under pressure and gave a great presentation. Now, repeat after me. She kept her cool under pressure and gave a great presentation. Again, she kept her cool under pressure and gave a great presentation. This is a great mindset to have because confidence isn't about never feeling nervous. It's about managing your nerves so they don't control you. Now, let's talk about one of the trickiest types of questions: strengths and weaknesses. Almost every interviewer will ask some version of this question, and it's important to answer it in a way that highlights your self-awareness and growth mindset. When discussing your strengths, don't just list them. Back them up with examples. Instead of saying, "I'm good at multitasking," say, "In my previous job, I often had to juggle multiple projects at once. I developed a system for prioritizing my tasks, which helped me meet all my deadlines efficiently." Now, when it comes to weaknesses, the key is to be honest, but also show how you're working to improve. You don't want to say something generic like, "I work too hard." Instead, choose a real challenge you've faced and explain the steps you're taking to overcome it. For example, you could say, "In the past, I struggled with public speaking. I used to get really nervous presenting in front of a group. But to improve, I started practicing regularly, taking online courses, and volunteering for speaking opportunities. Over time, I've become much more confident." This kind of answer shows self-awareness and a willingness to grow, which is exactly what interviewers look for. And here's another powerful phrase: turn a weakness into a strength. This means to take something that might seem like a flaw and use it to your advantage. Say it with me: turn a weakness into a strength. Again, turn a weakness into a strength. Let's use it in a sentence. First example is: in his interview, he turned his lack of experience into a strength by emphasizing his eagerness to learn. Another alternative is: she turned her introverted nature into a strength by highlighting her strong listening skills. Now repeat after me. She turned her introverted nature into a strength by highlighting her strong listening skills. Again, she turned her introverted nature into a strength by highlighting her strong listening skills. This mindset is so valuable because everyone has areas to improve, but it's how you frame them that makes the difference. All right, now let's move on to another important part of interviews: closing strong. Many candidates focus so much on answering questions that they forget about the final impression they leave at the end. The way you wrap up an interview can be just as important as how you start. First, always have a few thoughtful questions prepared for the interviewer. This shows that you're genuinely interested in the role and the company. Instead of asking something generic like, "What's the company culture like?" try something more engaging like, "What do you think makes someone truly successful in this role?" Second, summarize your enthusiasm. Before leaving, take a moment to express your excitement about the opportunity. You can say something like, I really appreciate the chance to speak with you today. I'm very excited about the possibility of joining your team, and I believe my skills in mention key strengths would allow me to contribute in a meaningful way. This small step can make a big impact because it keeps you fresh in the interviewer's mind and reinforces your enthusiasm. Now, let's introduce another useful phrase: leave a lasting impression. This means to create a strong and memorable impact on someone. Say it with me. Leave a lasting impression. Again, leave a lasting impression. Let's use it in a sentence. First example is, at the end of your interview, summarize your strengths and enthusiasm to leave a lasting impression. Another alternative is, her confident speech left a lasting impression on the audience. Now, repeat after me. Her confident speech left a lasting impression on the audience. Again, her confident speech left a lasting impression on the audience. This is exactly what you want to do in an interview. Walk away knowing that the interviewer remembers you in a positive light. All right, let's keep going because there's still so much more to explore about mastering interviews. We've talked about confidence, answering common questions, and leaving a lasting impression. Now, let's dive into the art of storytelling in interviews. One of the biggest mistakes candidates make is giving dry, robotic answers. When an interviewer asks about your experience or skills, they don't want a generic response. They want a story. Why? Because stories make you memorable. They paint a picture in the interviewer's mind, helping them visualize you in the role. So, how do you tell a compelling story? You use the STAR method. This stands for situation, task, action, and result. Let's break it down. Situation is where you set the scene. You briefly explain the context, where you were working, what the challenge was, or what problem needed solving. Task is where you describe what needed to be done. What was your responsibility in that situation? Action is where you explain what steps you took to address the challenge. This is the most important part because it shows your thought process, decision-making, and problem-solving skills. And finally, result is where you highlight the outcome. Did your actions lead to success? Did you improve a process, increase efficiency, or achieve a goal? Let's put it into action with an example. Imagine you're asked about a time when you had to handle a difficult situation at work. Instead of saying, I had a tough client once and I fixed the problem, let's build a strong STAR response. Situation: in my previous job as a customer service representative, I handled high-value client accounts. One day, a client called in extremely frustrated because their order had been delayed due to a system error. Task: my goal was to not only resolve the issue quickly but also ensure the client felt valued and reassured. Action: first, I actively listened to the client to understand their concerns. Then I immediately checked our system to identify the issue, escalated it to the logistics team, and personally followed up every hour to track the progress. I also offered the client a temporary solution so they weren't left without support while waiting. Result: by the end of the day, I had successfully resolved the issue, and the client was so impressed with the proactive communication that they extended their contract with us for another year. Now compare that response to a generic one. The difference is huge. Instead of just stating a fact, you're telling a story with a clear beginning, middle, and end. And here's an advanced phrase that fits perfectly: connect the dots. This means to make connections between different pieces of information to form a complete understanding. Say it with me: connect the dots. Again, connect the dots. Let's use it in a sentence. First example is, in an interview, you need to connect the dots between your experience and the job requirements. Another alternative is, a strong answer helps the interviewer connect the dots and see how your skills apply to their company. Now, repeat after me. A strong answer helps the interviewer connect the dots and see how your skills apply to their company. Again, a strong answer helps the interviewer connect the dots and see how your skills apply to their company. This is exactly why storytelling is so powerful. It helps the interviewer connect the dots between your past experience and what you can bring to their company. Now, let's move on to an important interview question. Why should we hire you? This question might seem simple, but it's actually one of the most crucial moments in an interview. It's your chance to summarize your value in a way that's clear, confident, and persuasive. A strong answer to this question should focus on three things: your skills, your experience, and your enthusiasm for the role. First, highlight your skills. Talk about what makes you a great fit for this specific job. Instead of saying, "I'm hardworking," make it specific. Say, "I have strong project management skills and a proven ability to meet tight deadlines." Second, tie your experience to the job requirements. If they're looking for someone who can work independently, you might say, "In my last role, I successfully managed multiple projects with minimal supervision, ensuring each one was completed on time." And third, show genuine enthusiasm. Companies don't just hire skills, they hire people who are passionate about the work. Instead of just saying, "I want this job," say, "I'm genuinely excited about this opportunity because I admire the company's mission and would love to contribute to its growth." Now, let's introduce another powerful phrase: stand out from the crowd. This means to be different in a way that makes people notice and remember you. Say it with me: stand out from the crowd. Again, stand out from the crowd. Let's use it in a sentence. First example is, your ability to communicate clearly in an interview will help you stand out from the crowd. Another alternative is, when answering, "Why should we hire you?" make sure your response is strong enough to stand out from the crowd. Now repeat after me. When answering, "Why should we hire you?" make sure your response is strong enough to stand out from the crowd. Again, when answering, "Why should we hire you?" make sure your response is strong enough to stand out from the crowd. This is so important because employers interview multiple candidates, and you need to be the one they remember. All right, we've covered storytelling, answering key questions, and making yourself stand out, but there's still so much more to explore. Let's keep going and take your interview skills even further. All right, let's keep going because there's still a lot to uncover about acing interviews. We've already talked about storytelling, answering "Why should we hire you?" and standing out from the crowd. Now, let's talk about one of the trickiest parts of an interview: handling difficult questions with confidence. Have you ever been asked about your weaknesses in an interview and felt completely stuck? Or maybe you've been asked why you left your last job and you weren't sure how to frame it in a positive way. These types of questions can feel like traps, but if you prepare well, they're actually an opportunity to showcase your self-awareness and professionalism. Let's start with the classic question: what is your biggest weakness? Now, a lot of people make one of two mistakes when answering this. The first mistake is saying something too cliche, like "I'm a perfectionist." The second mistake is mentioning a weakness that could make the interviewer question your ability to do the job, like saying, I have trouble meeting deadlines. The key to answering this question is choosing a weakness that is real but not a deal breaker for the job. And most importantly, you need to show how you're actively working on improving it. For example, instead of saying, I struggle with time management, you can say something like this. In the past, I sometimes found it challenging to manage multiple projects at once. However, I've worked on this by using time blocking techniques and project management tools, which have helped me become much more organized and efficient. See the difference? You're being honest about an area you've improved on, but you're also showing that you take initiative to grow. Now, let's introduce a phrase that fits perfectly here. Turn things around. This means to improve a situation or change something negative into something positive. Say it with me. Turn things around. Again, turn things around. Let's use it in a sentence. First example is, in an interview, you should always turn things around when discussing your weaknesses by focusing on how you've improved. Another alternative is, when talking about a past mistake, explain what you learned and how you turned things around. Now, repeat after me. When talking about a past mistake, explain what you learned and how you turned things around. Again, when talking about a past mistake, explain what you learned and how you turned things around. This is exactly what you should do when answering questions about weaknesses. Show that you've taken action to turn things around. Now, let's talk about another tough question. Why did you leave your last job? This one can be tricky, especially if you left because of a bad experience. But the key here is to stay professional and positive. Never speak negatively about your previous employer, even if you had a difficult time there. Instead, focus on the future and how the new opportunity aligns with your goals. For example, instead of saying, my last job was toxic and I couldn't wait to leave, you can say something like this. I learned a lot in my last role, but I was looking for new challenges that aligned more with my long-term career goals. This opportunity stood out to me because it allows me to grow my skills in a way that excites me. Notice how this answer keeps things professional while also showing enthusiasm for the new role. And here's another powerful phrase that fits perfectly. Put your best foot forward. This means to present yourself in the best possible way. Say it with me. Put your best foot forward. Again, put your best foot forward. Let's use it in a sentence. First example is, even when discussing a past job you didn't like, always put your best foot forward by staying professional. Another alternative is, in interviews, your goal is to put your best foot forward and highlight your strengths. Now, repeat after me. In interviews, your goal is to put your best foot forward and highlight your strengths. Again, in interviews, your goal is to put your best foot forward and highlight your strengths. This is so important because interviews are about showing your value, not focusing on the past. Now, let's move on to another tricky interview question. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? A lot of candidates struggle with this one because they either don't know exactly what they want or they worry about saying the wrong thing. The best approach here is to balance ambition with realism. For example, if you're applying for a marketing position, you don't want to say, in 5 years, I want to be in a completely different industry. Instead, you can say something like this. I see myself growing in my expertise and taking on more responsibility in marketing, possibly in a leadership role. I'm excited about the opportunities this company provides, and I'd love to continue developing my skills here. This answer works because it shows long-term thinking, aligns with a company's goals, and demonstrates commitment. And here's another phrase that fits perfectly: set your sights on. This means to focus on a goal or ambition. Say it with me: set your sights on. Again, set your sights on. Let's use it in a sentence. First example is: when discussing your career goals, set your sights on growth and development. Another alternative is: employers want to hear that you've set your sights on a future that aligns with their company. Now, repeat after me. Employers want to hear that you've set your sights on a future that aligns with their company. Again, employers want to hear that you've set your sights on a future that aligns with their company. This is so important because interviewers want to know that you're thinking ahead and that your goals align with the company's direction. All right, we've covered handling tough questions, presenting yourself in the best light, and framing your answers strategically. But there's still more to dive into. Let's keep going and take your interview skills even further. All right, let's keep going because we're not done yet. There are still so many key interview strategies and expressions we need to cover. Now, let's talk about a question that often catches people off guard. Tell me about a time you faced a challenge at work and how you handled it. This is what's known as a behavioral interview question, and it's designed to see how you respond to real-life situations. Interviewers love these questions because past behavior is one of the best indicators of future performance. Now, the mistake many people make when answering this type of question is either giving a vague response or telling a long, unfocused story. The best way to answer is by using the STAR method: situation, task, action, result. This method helps you structure your answer in a way that's clear, concise, and impactful. Let's break it down. First, you describe the situation. What was the challenge or problem? Then you explain the task, what needed to be done. After that, you talk about the action you took. What did you do to solve the problem? And finally, you share the result, what happened as a result of your actions. For example, imagine you're asked about a time you had to deal with a difficult coworker. Instead of just saying, "I worked with someone difficult, but we figured it out," you can give a strong, structured response like this: in my previous job, I was working on a project with a colleague who had a very different working style from mine, and we kept running into conflicts over how to approach the task. I knew that for the project to be successful, we needed to find common ground. So I took the initiative to schedule a meeting where we could openly discuss our challenges and agree on a plan that worked for both of us. As a result, we improved our collaboration and successfully completed the project ahead of schedule. See how this answer follows the STAR method? It tells a clear story while showing problem-solving skills and teamwork. Now, let's move on to another key interview question. How do you handle pressure or tight deadlines? Now, let's dive deeper into one of the most valuable qualities employers look for: leadership. Even if you're not applying for a management position, companies love hiring people who take initiative, guide others, and step up when needed. One of the most common questions you'll hear in an interview is, "Can you describe a time when you demonstrated leadership?" Many people get stuck on this question because they assume leadership only means managing a team. But leadership is much more than just being a boss. It's about taking responsibility, making decisions, and influencing others positively. For example, maybe you led a project, helped train a new employee, or took charge of a situation when things weren't going as planned. Your goal in answering this question is to show that you're proactive, reliable, and capable of guiding others when needed. Let's go with an example. Imagine you were part of a group project at work and some teammates were struggling to keep up with deadlines. Instead of sitting back and waiting for things to fall apart, you took the initiative to create a schedule, delegate tasks, and ensure everyone stayed on track. In the end, the project was completed successfully, and your team appreciated your leadership. Now, let's break down an idiom that fits this situation perfectly. Take the reins. This means to take control of a situation or take charge of something. Say it with me. Take the reins. Again, take the reins. Let's use it in a sentence. First example is when the manager was away, I had to take the reins and ensure everything ran smoothly. Another alternative is, after months of preparation, it was finally time for me to take the reins and lead the presentation. Now, repeat after me. After months of preparation, it was finally time for me to take the reins and lead the presentation. Again, after months of preparation, it was finally time for me to take the reins and lead the presentation. This idiom is powerful because it shows that you are not afraid of responsibility. When you use it in an interview, it makes you sound more confident and capable. Another phrase that works well for leadership situations is step up to the plate. This means to take responsibility for something, especially in a challenging situation. Say it with me. Step up to the plate. Again, step up to the plate. Let's use it in a sentence. First example is when the team was short on staff, I stepped up to the plate and handled extra tasks to keep things running. Another alternative is, instead of waiting for someone else to solve the problem, I decided to step up to the plate and take action. Now, repeat after me. Instead of waiting for someone else to solve the problem, I decided to step up to the plate and take action. Again, instead of waiting for someone else to solve the problem, I decided to step up to the plate and take action. This phrase is perfect for showing interviewers that you are proactive and willing to take on challenges. Now, let's move on to another crucial topic, handling feedback. Employers love candidates who are open to learning and improving. A common interview question is, can you tell me about a time you received constructive criticism and how you handled it? A strong answer to this question shows that you don't take feedback personally, but instead use it to grow. Maybe you received feedback about improving your communication skills and you decided to take a public speaking course. Or perhaps your manager suggested a different way of approaching a task and you applied their advice to get better results. One great way to phrase this is, in my previous job, my supervisor pointed out that my emails were sometimes too detailed, making it harder for colleagues to find key information. I took their feedback seriously and started structuring my emails with bullet points and clear subject lines. As a result, communication improved and my supervisor appreciated the change. Now, let's break down another useful expression. Take something in stride. This means to accept something, especially a challenge or criticism, without getting upset. Say it with me. Take something in stride. Again, take something in stride. Let's use it in a sentence. First example is, when my boss gave me feedback about my presentation, I took it in stride and made the necessary improvements. Another alternative is, instead of getting frustrated about the extra workload, I decided to take it in stride and manage my time effectively. Now, repeat after me. Instead of getting frustrated about the extra workload, I decided to take it in stride and manage my time effectively. Again, instead of getting frustrated about the extra workload, I decided to take it in stride and manage my time effectively. Using this phrase in an interview can make you sound mature, professional, and adaptable. Before we wrap up today's deep dive into interview success, let's take a moment to reflect on everything we've covered. We explored essential phrases, expressions, and idioms that can help you communicate confidently and professionally in an interview. We've gone through real life examples, practical scenarios, and even broke things down with repetition so you can truly absorb them. But remember, knowing these phrases is just the first step. The real magic happens when you start practicing, shadowing, repeating, and using these expressions in your daily conversations will help them feel natural when you're in an actual interview. The more you practice, the more second nature they'll become, and the less you'll have to think about them under pressure. So here's what I want you to do. Pick at least 5 phrases from today's episode and use them in your own mock interview. Say them out loud, record yourself, or even practice in front of a mirror. If you can, find a friend or mentor to practice with. The more you simulate real interview settings, the more confident you'll be when the time comes. And don't forget, consistency is key. Preparing for an interview isn't just about memorizing answers. It's about developing a mindset where you're clear, confident, and composed under any circumstance. Keep refining, keep practicing, and before you know it, you'll walk into your next interview not just hoping for success, but expecting it. That's all for today's episode, but this conversation doesn't have to end here. If you found this podcast helpful, let me know in the comments what part resonated with you the most. Thanks for listening, and until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and go ace that interview. See you in the next episode.